Economic development is contingent on productive investments, and financing of such productive activities can be obtained through two channels: via capital markets or banks. In modern economies, these two channels are complementary, but the role of banks is clearly central. Banks are key players in the financing of economies, and when their own financial position prevents them from performing this function, economic growth is compromised. To shed more light on issues around the banking sector crisis and resolution options in Nigeria is a banking expert, Dr. Boniface Chizia, who joins us virtually from Lagos. You're welcome, Doctor, to Business Express.
Leah, how are you?
I'm fine, thank you. Good morning.
I hope you have some rains. We have some rains here in Lagos.
Okay, great. How is the heat over there?
Well, it's come down. So, in spite of the tension in the environment, we have some rain and it's come down. So we thank God for that.
Yeah, we got some relief yesterday too when the rains came here. But for starters, what is happening to our naira and the banking sector?
Well, I think it's something that is strange. It's something that we are not familiar with. I've never seen anything like that before. You know, because it's not one of the things that banks must avoid. If somebody coming to a bank, he has money on his account, and then he comes to present his check, and then it's not honored. You know, under normal circumstances, that could lead to a run in the bank. Of course, you know, the problem is this. Now that it's cuts across, it's all the banks. There are no exceptions, but I think it's a terrible thing to happen. You can't have a bank account, you put your money in the bank, and you go to the bank, and you're not able to get it. You know, one of the things that made people that affected people embracing banking is the fact that they felt that they felt more comfortable, felt more safe with their monies under their pillows. They felt it's within reach, and so on and so forth. But you know, so we've come a long way, and we're talking about cashless policy, and then people were still having this problem, and it's lingered. One thought that it was all leading up to the elections, presidential elections that took place on February 25th. We thought that after that, it would begin to ease. Of course, it's eased a bit, but I think that the challenges are still there.
Well, this policy, when it started, the change, the redesigned policy, as soon as it took off, we began to experience fluctuations in online transactions with a whole lot of disaffection from that end. And then it looks like it is taking forever for banks to sort out transaction errors, but yet they're seeing huge profits from online transaction fees, right?
Yeah. Well, you know, I think that probably the online thing, well, most people are embracing online now, which I think is, they say every cloud has a silver lining. So I think that that might be the silver lining in this cloud. So my person that supplies water here normally will pay cash, and they all carry POS. So we don't pay POS. I go to market to buy things, I pay POS. I think that that might be in the development. But I think that in developed economies, that's the way it's done. People don't carry cash. But I think that what's happening here is that it's happening suddenly, and we're having lots of challenges. You take the online transactions, one of the things that's happening is that the traffic online also, it has a limited capacity. And so if the traffic online is increased suddenly, a quantum leap in the demand online, then it's bad to have this experience we're having with people getting online and they're not being able to transact and so on. And then, of course, if you are smart enough, there are times of the day when it's easier to do online transfers.
Okay. Now, this development, I guess it has its positives and its negatives, of course. Perhaps from your expert point of view, you can tell us how this is telling.
No, sorry, Lee. Someone's talking in the background. That's affecting our transaction conversation. Somebody's talking in your studio. Okay, all right.
So okay. I'm hoping that you can tell us how this development is affecting individual financial plans and SMEs. How is this development affecting them?
Well, I think that it will affect everybody, because if you're not sure you're going to get cash, in as much as we are pushing for cashless, certain things you need cash, to transact. And so if you're not sure you get cash, then it's bound to affect your financial transactions. there are some payments you need to make, and there are certain things, that token, there's not much, that you don't necessarily have to do bank transfers. And so, so it's definitely bound to affect people. But like I said, I would expect that elections have, the problematic elections, I think is now off the way for now, although it has not been resolved. But we expect that after the elections, that we'll have some calming down and that things will begin to normalize.
Okay, then we're yet to get a clear-cut direction on the ruling by the Supreme Court. At best, how soon should we get some headway from parties involved? Because I understand legally they will have to examine the come to an agreement.
This is happening because the central bank does not given any specific instructions. I think that the central bank has called, I read in the press, central bank 20 and to the bank has not speak. When the central bank has not spoken, the banks do not take instructions from Supreme Court. I might see this opportunity to say that I think the Supreme Court should be able to take itself off these matters. I think it's supposed to be a court of last resort. When we have issues with Supreme Bank making a statement and the statement are not being, and gives a ruling has not been observed, it's not good for the country, it's not good for the economy. Because you cannot have an economy where you don't have rule of law. So I think that we're in a dilemma in this respect. Even investors coming overseas, one of the concerns they have is the rule of law. So they have a contract with you, and sanctity of contract, for instance, and that is underpinned by where you have rule of law. So I think it's unfortunate it should be happening. But I hear some banks on their own are beginning to pay out the old currency notes. But even those who are recipients, they are challenged because they take the notes from the banks and they go out there, and most vendors and so on are not ready to take the old notes. So I think there's a dilemma, and I think that earlier this is resolved, better for all concerned.
That they cut our ratings, which is one that the presidentials have come and gone. We are having the subnationals come to go, looking at the situation before us.
Well, I think that the investors have greater, more intelligence. Most are not waiting for rating agencies, which they come, they have their own. There are periods and times when they announce their ratings. But I think that most people who play in this environment, they have their own intelligence. They gather it every day. You go to the press, whatever is happening here. You go overseas, and you look at the elections, and you look at the editorials, negative editorials, across board about the elections. So they know very much about what's happening there. So let's not play the ostrich. I want to, pretend that, what's happening, people don't know. People are aware, they know what's happening. All we need to do is to quickly, put our house in order.
Okay, so before I let you go, what do you see as likely implications for the nation's banking sector in the short and in the long run?
Well, I don't know what is the tertiary. Anyway, for the banking sector, I think that the banks eventually, banking is a profitable business in the sense that what would happen is only that maybe the level of profit might drop. That's what has to happen. But before long, banks will pick up. There are no ready substitutes for banks within the economy. So we don't have any fears, but certainly there are some issues. Some bank branches have been touched, So all those ones would cost some money. So yes.
Okay, I must sincerely thank you, Dr. Boniface Chizia, for always making our time to give us some insights into the financial and banking sector.
Thank you, Lee. It's my pleasure always.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right.
So we take a trip.